Welcome to Tales from the Trenches, Season 4. Today, it is my honor to have Sarah Grebow with me.
Here's a story of a fundraiser who was launching his very own web show. Each episode is very short due to edits, so it can really flow. Here's a story of a podcast guest star who was busy raising money of their own. They were each great in their own way, fundraising in the zone. Till the one day when Jack asked a guest to join him, and they knew it was much more than a jest, that these guests must somehow form a resource. That's the way they all became the podcast guests. The podcast guests. The podcast guests. That's the way they became the podcast guests.
Sarah is a consultant to nonprofit organizations and charter schools on major gift philanthropy and corporate and foundation giving. She focuses on strategies to create and grow lasting partnerships, leading to large gifts based on organizations' vision and fit with donors' philanthropic goals. Beyond the transactional, her 20-plus year career in major gifts has led her to specialize in coaching nonprofit executive directors and their development staff on individualized plans and strategies for their top prospects and donors, as well as presenting trainings to boards on taking on new ideas and active roles in the engagement of high-level prospects during board meetings and retreats. She works with nonprofits addressing various causes looking to deepen their transformational giving or are major gift curious. Yet she is particularly passionate about education and youth causes as she appreciates the love of learning she gained through her educational experiences. Sarah earned her master's degree in higher education from the University of Maryland and her bachelor's degree in comparative literature, both Spanish and English, with a minor in educational studies from Haverford College. So Sarah, what a long bio, but we are so pleased to have you on board. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited for today's conversation.
So you've been in the business for 20 plus years, and I'm sure people call you up all the time and say, Sarah, can I take you for coffee and pick your brain? I'm thinking about getting into the wonderful world of fundraising. So, if you were to kind of look back at a crystal ball and say, go back 20 years, what kind of advice would you give yourself or someone who's kind of just starting off in this wonderful career? What kind of things would you chat with them about?
For major gifts, you really need to love people. You need to be up for the challenge, know that there's a real depth and a quantitative part of it, but there's also a relationship focus as well. Be curious about people and about their interests. Definitely ask good questions. I always tell people to prepare, but don't over prepare because you want to learn, you want to be open. Like it's one thing to know someone on paper. It's something else to get to know them and their interest in your organization. Remember, this is not sales. You should be passionate and completely in tune with your organization's mission and its vision, its future. But you're not going to convince someone to make a gift that's transformational. You're going to learn from them what they care about, what their philanthropic goals are, and you're going to test the waters and see if different things are of interest. And you're going to learn and course correct, because if you don't try, you're settling, and that's transactional, and that's not going to be as powerful or as impactful for the organization or the person as it can be.
Right. So, we've seen fundraising change from when we started off, 20, 30, whatever the number will be, years ago. And it's moving pretty quickly as most careers are having a hockey stick trajectory change. So where do you, if you had a crystal ball and had to look 5, 10 years in the future, Where would you see some of the differences in fundraising from what it is today?
I think fundraising has a lot of opportunities for innovation. I think there's always opportunities for change at like the intersection of different fields. That's always been my passion academically and professionally. I've loved working in regional programs at universities because you get to work with different jobs, different styles, different deans and leaders. And I think remembering that and being open to donors change. I mean, looking at the great wealth transfer and women donors becoming more, they've always been involved in different ways, and that was a lot of my graduate seminar
Right.
paper was on women donors and that. But also looking at innovation in terms of involvement and younger donors as they becoming more involved and are inheriting the wealth of large foundations and their and individuals. They want different things. Like they want to be involved in a way that's a little bit more grassroots, and I think some of that is seems very different, but it isn't. Again, if it comes back to the priorities and the future of the institution and learning what the specific and unique goals and direction of the individual is, that's the same thing we've always been doing. So it's going to be the
Right.
same, but it might look different. And I
Right.
think sometimes that's being aware and being and asking even better questions and involving new sectors and that. I also think there's going to be more integration and hopefully smarter use of special events and proposals and ways that should have already been happening. And I think in some ways the nonprofits world has always been a little bit behind higher ed and healthcare, just because of resources mainly. But they're starting to
Right.
catch up, and I think those are going to also come into play
Right.
more. So I think it's going to look a little different, but be very much the same heart, the same soul, the same asking it questions and figuring out a new, unique, violently passionate priority.
Right. Well put. Well put. So many fundraisers report not only to a CEO or a, chief fundraising officer or whatever, or a VP or something like that, but there's also a board, a lay group that they have to report to. And there's always kind of that ebb and flow that you want to be respectful, yet you're hired as the professional to kind of do what you need to do in order to be successful. So, what should kind of, as my good friend Jason Lewis always calls them, boards and bosses, what should they be looking at that they really aren't looking at today?
I think a lot of times, unfortunately, boards are reticent to get involved or hesitant to get involved directly in fundraising in ways that, unfortunately, some of it is managing expectations and having a clear job description, honestly, with recruiting. But once there, I mean, there's a responsibility for a board member, not just to oversee how the money is being spent of an organization, but it should be their direct involvement of how it's brought in. And I think some of that is encouraging and making sure that the executive director and other leaders are prioritizing fundraising, and they're prioritizing it with their calendar, they're prioritizing it with their staffing, and they're prioritizing it with their volunteers, because they shouldn't be doing this alone. They don't need to be doing this from cold. And there's so much opportunity if they just work a little smarter and leverage what they've already been doing, understand what works for their community, try new things in terms of engagement of high level donors and funders. And I think the board can really be proactive in pushing that. I think they also need to set an example with their individual giving and also with coming together and doing challenges, inviting their network. The board chair and every member of that board has a responsibility to leave the institution a better place philanthropically than it started. And while I would hope that that conversation happened before and was clear what their minimal responsibilities are, I also hope that they encourage each other on that board to do more, and the community as well as staff, and really set the tone for, we're all in this together, we care about this organization, and we can do high level fundraising, and we're ready for it. You.
If folks wanted to reach out and find you, what's the best way of doing that?
LinkedIn is the best way to reach me, Sarah Grebow on LinkedIn.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much for your time, Sarah.
Thank you, Jack. This was a pleasure.